Welcome, thank you for coming this morning. My name is Megan, I'm the shelter director at Cincinnati Animal CARE. And I think this is probably a pretty timely topic for a lot of people. We got a lot going on in our industry right now. Unfortunately, I wish I wasn't presenting things like this, but this is one that I've presented a couple times, and I've actually tweaked it. This is my first time doing the tweaked version, just as things evolve and as things change in our organization, and as we try to update and keep doing better all the time. So welcome to Leadership Through Life-Saving Euthanasia Decision Process. I'm going to hold questions till the end, and I'm going to try to kind of whip through this so that we can get to questions, because I know a lot of people, I'm going to kind of high-level discuss, but a lot of people have things going on in their organization that they may want to ask questions about. I've been asked to have, if you do have a question, to stand up and come to the microphone here in the middle, because I think this is being recorded, and so they want to make sure they get everybody. So we're not tossing the square thing around. It'll be at the microphone here. So just a couple quick things about Cincinnati Animal CARE. I know when I've been in presentations before, I'm like, wow, that's great, but then I find out the organization is totally different than the one I'm in, and I'm trying to figure out how to apply it. So just for some context, Cincinnati Animal CARE, we're a young organization. We were founded in August of 2020 to take over a municipal contract in our city. So we are very new, so we've been dealing with a lot of startup issues, challenges, but I'm very proud to say we took the county's animal shelter to no-kill literally overnight on August 1st of 2020. So, and that was really by coming to places like this and coming to following best friends and organizations like that, and just being committed to trying everything and best practice. We're in Hamilton County, Ohio. We oversee the entire county. It's about 400 square miles. We see about 800,000 people, and we take in between 7,000 to 8,000 animals a year. And we have had, on average, since August of 2020, we've been at about a 93% live release rate. And we serve cats and dogs. Now, we do have animal control, we call them dog wardens in Ohio, and they are very active in our community. So we do take in the odd bird or duck or monkey or whatever comes along. So, but mostly we are serving cats and dogs. So it just gives you a little background about where I'm from and how we're applying what I'm about to talk about. What I will discuss today is just some suggestions for leaders in this room about how to really communicate when you do make a decision, whether it's life-saving or whether it's a euthanasia decision, because sometimes life-saving decisions are just as difficult. Do you keep going? Should we keep going? This dog has a bite. Should we keep? Those ones, a lot of people think the tough ones are the euthanasia, but sometimes the life-saving decisions are also just as difficult. How to communicate that and just really get your team on board for the most part. We can't make everybody happy. And then what I will do is actually go through our process. So it's kind of a two-part presentation about how we do those things. So just a quick note about life-saving, euthanasia, and this presentation. I'm not here to tell you when to euthanize or when to keep an animal alive. That, to me, is really personal to your organization and your community and your staff and your resources and everything that you've got going on. But I am here to talk a little bit about how to communicate that once that decision is made. So we can get into a little bit, and that's a little bit of the tweak, a little bit more about our decision-making process. But really, we're not going to be talking about how to make those decisions. This presentation is also pretty focused on dogs and pretty focused on behavior. But it could be applied to cats. It could also be applied to medical decisions as well. But just for time's sake and to really get narrowed in and focused, that's what we'll be discussing today. So as you know, life and death decisions can divide an organization and they can divide a community. If you're in this room, you've probably been either a part of a decision or you've seen a decision made, maybe by people above you or equal to you, that's gotten a lot of criticism or a lot of scrutiny around it. And when we talk about no-kill as an industry, there's a lot of different definitions of that. And it's really difficult sometimes for a community and for an organization to come to terms and really get on the same page and really develop a united front around what are we even doing here? What's the decision? And there's so many options. We could euthanize everything, or we could keep everything alive. And there's a whole bunch of space in between there that really makes for some gray area and really makes for some difficult decisions. And it does take a toll. It can take a toll on your community. It can take a toll on your organization. So I'll let you just read these real quick, 2 quotes. So that's for a no-kill shelter, you're pretty quick to euthanize, you're all murderers. And the other quote is, that dog was dangerous, but you won't euthanize because all you care about is the numbers. Raise your hand if you've received something like this about a decision that you've made. What's funny or not so funny is I got these are quotes about the same dog. And these are two, again, when we talk about ends of the spectrum, this is the kind of stuff I know in my position that I get. I get emails, I get phone calls, I get stopped in the hallway. And I'll be honest, this stuff used to happen a lot more frequently until we started really looking at how are we communicating with our team and with our community as well. So we're going to go through a few leadership strategies that I hope will help you as you make these decisions if you're a decision maker in this process, or you can pass it along to the decision makers and see if it helps them as well. So the number one thing I want you to be doing is building a team. You've got to build a team around you. If you are making decisions by yourself, whether it's to keep an animal alive or whether it's to euthanize, stop. Do not do that. Almost every time I talk about this with anybody, I have somebody say, I'm doing it on my own. I'm the one person making those decisions. That is going to take a toll. I don't think you're probably thinking clearly all the time. It's that you've got to get the right people around you. Making decisions as a team takes that pressure off. It helps, you're going to get better information. You're not just stuck with one individual's perception or opinion. But make those decisions as a team and have those conversations. Make sure you get the right people in the room. And this is something we've toyed around with a little bit in Cincinnati, is try to figure out who are the best people to be in that room. I've got people that might be very qualified, but they're too emotional, if I'm being honest. They struggle to make a decision. They're indecisive. They get kind of snarky when it comes to the decision-making process. They can't have a good conversation. They're not allowed to come anymore. We've actually kicked people out. No offense, they can go do something else. But you cannot be in this room. And as myself, as somebody who's really leading that discussion, one of the leaders of that discussion, I owe it to the rest of the group that we maintain a good environment for conversation. I owe it to the animals. If we're infighting, we're not going to come to the best decision. So getting the right people in the room is important. I'll discuss a little bit what ours looks like in a few minutes. Make sure you share the positives. A lot of times you saw the murderer comment, you saw the numbers comment. That tends to kind of be the thing we all think about, we're all scared of. But I actually get a lot of compliments as well. Like, hey guys, that was a really tough decision. Thank you for making it. You guys are doing great work. I pass those along. I forward those to the team, make sure that they're aware, because I don't want to be the only one hearing that. A lot of them come to me because I send out the mass communication. But I want to make sure that my team is aware that they're supported as well, not just, we're not just hearing the negatives. And also, make sure you're giving credit. That's a really great way to build that team. These are not my good decisions or my bad decisions. This is us as a team, and I think that's something we've done really well so far in Cincinnati. Make sure you set expectations. This one is really, really important to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Whether they agree with that page or not, they're on the same page. Defining your values and your philosophy are super, super important. So if you're at home right now, you're at the shelter making decisions that are just kind of, you kind of know what you're doing, but maybe nobody else does, they can appear random, and you're setting yourself up for more questions, more critique, and more just general scrutiny over why'd you make that decision. Just make sure you define your values and define your philosophy. What decisions are you making? What are you willing to tolerate? Is it a hard line in the sand on certain behaviors? Or is it, we see a behavior, so we're going to do X, Y, and Z before we get to a decision? Whatever that might be thinking about what are your values and what are your philosophies when it comes to these decisions. Make sure you're setting criteria for the decisions. And again, I'll talk about some of this, about what we do in Cincinnati, so you can see some examples. But setting criteria, we don't want to be just randomly, this dog gets euthanized, this one doesn't. Kind of the same issue, same situation, but why did this one get it and this one not? So we want to be able to really turn to something a little more concrete that says, here's how we made that decision. So make sure you're thinking that stuff through, and that's a great just sort of activity, and it's a great way maybe to bounce off some people at your shelter. Again, back with that team that you have, it could be anybody. You could bring your marketing person in if you think they know what they're talking about and they've got some good ideas. So the team itself doesn't matter, but people you trust, people you want around you, and you can come up with this together, what your decisions are, or what your criteria is. And make sure you establish process and routine. It's really important that this becomes a predictable process. This has got to be predictable. Otherwise, again, you're probably making life harder on yourself because you're kind of stuck in, there's no blueprint. You're kind of making it up as you go. And your team is going to be wondering, why are you making certain decisions? Why this time but not that time? So really creating that process. The process for communication is important. How are you going to communicate? How are you going to let your team know? How are you going to let your volunteers know? How are you going to let your community know? If you do any of those things, how are you communicating? How are you offering participation? And this could be from maybe the dogs that maybe you're kind of on last chance, at risk, deadline set kind of stuff. How are you communicating what that dog needs? We're going to be euthanizing on Monday if we can't do what? Figure out a foster, get an adopter, find a board and train facility, whatever that might be. So you've got to be really clear with your team about how to communicate that stuff and how they can participate and how they can help, especially with those at-risk dogs. And then timelines as well. Really setting that clear timeline. If some of you probably do have meetings, you meet with a team, or you have a certain day that you really review some of these dogs, it's important to really try when you can to have a timeline that flows each week. If you meet on a Tuesday, you're going to communicate on a Wednesday, maybe you're going to euthanize on a Thursday or a Friday, or whatever that might look like, but trying to find that rhythm. Now, I will say we have reserve the right to change that. The most important thing, we're doing a lot of this stuff to communicate and really get buy-in from people, but at the end of the day, it's the animals that matter. So if we have to move things along a little more quickly, or we want to give a little more time, we reserve the right to change that schedule, but then I will communicate that as well. So that's just really important stuff to set those expectations. Make sure you're transparent. Transparent. This is really scary, and I think I heard the word transparent the first time at one of these conferences, but it's gone such a long way for us. When we first came into the county shelter in 2020, we had kind of the same critique as everybody else, a lot of, why are you making those decisions, what are you doing? And we just started getting very transparent about why we're doing it. Here's our data, here's our percentages. We have on our website at cincinnatianimalcare.org an entire breakdown of our noses in, noses out data every month. So we're not hiding anything. And really what that's developed is a lot of trust from our community and from our team. So you can accuse us of a lot of things, but it's not hiding things. And since doing that, we saw, people are really, what do you mean you euthanize? What do you mean you do? But that's really declined as they've just come to see, okay, they're just telling us the truth. And they get on board with that. So being honest and being direct with everybody has been really, really important for us. We also offer multiple modes of communication. When I communicate that we're going to be euthanizing a dog at a certain date, at a certain time, we send it out via email. We have a Slack channel that we use. We used to use a Facebook page that we don't really use anymore, but it was going up on there. So just looking for as many opportunities we can to make sure the word gets out. So we're not just kind of, again, you can't accuse us of hiding anything. We're an open book, and that, again, has really helped develop some trust. And then with the communication, it's really important to be prepared for changes to the routine. As I just mentioned, if we have to move something a little more quickly, or we hit pause on something, people are gonna be like, I was waiting for your email last night. What happened? Why didn't it come through? Making sure that I communicate that, like, hey team, you won't be getting the update, the email tonight. Instead, it'll be coming out tomorrow morning. We had to review a couple more things. Takes me an extra minute or two in my day to just kind of shoot that out. But by getting ahead of those changes, it helps Again, build that trust, make sure everybody feels like they're part of the team. We also are very prepared and very aware of favorites. You could probably think right now about a favorite dog at your shelter that everybody loves, and if you have to euthanize it, there's going to be chaos. We are very aware of that, and I think that some of that's really good to get information and get feedback from some of the staff that are around you. And again, when we're talking about having the right people in the room, I need somebody in there who's going to be like, hold on, if we move forward with this, we better reach out to this foster, we better reach out to this volunteer, we better reach out to this staff member. Now, I will say, we again reserve the right to not do that. We can't possibly, we actually formally don't. Like we've told everybody, we can't reach out to individuals, but we do. We know when it's appropriate, we will on the side, but what I don't want to do is set that standard and say, we will reach out to you, because there's always that person who has the relationship that nobody even knows they had the relationship, and now they're mad because you didn't reach out to them, but you reached out to this person. So having a plan for those favorites, when we move forward with those decisions, and I think that's happening more and more because hopefully you're all with me, but as we've kept dogs longer, we start developing more and more relationships. And that's actually a discussion that we have sometimes in our meetings. And that's not to say we would just, well, we better stop right now because we don't want anyone to get attached. But that is something we want to be aware of. Everybody's starting to get really attached to this dog. So we either need to get a positive outcome or we need to make a decision, but it's got to happen sooner than later. We can't wait for another 2 months because it's going to be very difficult once that comes around. So just having a plan for those favorites and just being aware and knowing who those are. And again, when you can, please reach out to those people. It does go a long way to do that. And also just surprise behaviors. You also probably all know this dog, the one that is so amazing at the shelter, incredible. Everyone loves it, no problems. And then somebody takes it home, an adopter takes it home, and it's resource guarding like crazy and bites somebody. You bring it back to the shelter and you're talking euthanasia for, whatever, because it was such a bad incident, and people are like, what are you talking about? That dog's amazing. How could you ever possibly? So again, being able to communicate that and help people understand that what they see on that 20-minute walk once a week at the shelter isn't the full picture, and really trying to bring them along. We've actually had individual conversations with people. That's some of the individual conversations we have, is to, we know right away that that volunteer, that staff member is going to be very upset to hear that the dog that they love, and it maybe caught all of us off guard. That dog did something in the home, and we will go have that conversation with that person, the volunteer, that foster that has that relationship, just to talk that through and give them a chance to process it. So that stuff is all really important, again, in building trust. I've used that word multiple times, but really building that trust and building that just belief in the process. So another thing that is really important, exceptionally, this might be one of our most important, really, when it comes to the animals, is we are committed to getting it right. Tawny Hammond, a lot of you know her, she has told me multiple times, it's more important to get it right than to be right. And it's really tempting to, when you make a decision, to just say, we've made it. That's the decision, we're moving forward. Everyone else can deal with it, that's what we're doing. And that's a terrible way to go about it, especially for that animal. We are committed to knowing as much as humanly possible before we get to that decision. I want the holistic, I want the full body of work, from that dog arriving to the dog, to what it's doing today. I want to understand as best I can everything that's going on so that I can make the best decision possible and my team can make the best decision possible. There's been multiple times where we've made a decision, we're euthanizing. Thursday at 3, it's happening, sorry everybody, we've made that decision. And at the 11th hour, we're like, canceled, not euthanizing, moving, we're gonna be reviewing some more information. We got something new came in, a foster emailed us and was like, whoa, that's not how that story happened. Let me tell you what happened exactly. Or a volunteer, like, no, but there's a huge breakthrough. We just did this training thing and it's been working really well. So if we do get new information, we're reviewing that to the point where when we're at I attend almost every single euthanasia personally. I've got my phone out, just double checking that we have no emails coming in with any extra, anything else that could just kind of, give us some more information. So it's really important for us to get it right. Now, we've been accused of flip-flopping. Oh, they can't make up their mind, they can't decide. They can think that. Again, I'd rather get it right. I don't need to be right. I need to get it right. Something else that we do is really lean on others for perspective. There's some people in this room I'm looking at that I reach out to, like, hey, we got a weird situation here. This dog did this, and it wasn't that bad, but it was kind of bad, and what would you do? And just kind of getting some kind of just outside information can sometimes be helpful. If you're making partnerships, if you're meeting people here today or here this week, it's a great way, just somebody completely objective. What would you do in your shelter with this situation? And just kind of talking it through with somebody who's not emotionally invested, who doesn't already know the dog, who doesn't already have some conceptions about it. That's been really helpful for me, just to get that information. In fact, I will say as well, if you are friends enough, recently I had my team, actually sit in via Zoom on one of our partner shelters meetings. So we got to listen in and just hear what their discussions were like. And that was super helpful, especially for my team right now where we're really struggling with, like, we're a life-saving organization, but we're in some trouble. Are others in trouble too? And I think it was really helpful. So just a little side note, if you're open to that, I'd be open to that. If anybody wants to listen in on ours, again, we got nothing to hide. So you'd be welcome to. And again, just making sure it's okay to change your mind. Again, it's be open to new ideas, be open to new information coming forward. Try your best to get as much information. We are writing our officers all the time because a lot of stuff happens in the field and they bring a dog in and they're like, there was a bite. I'm like, what kind of bite? What happened? What was the level? Why did it do it? What was going on before that? How bad? We want all that information. So they're used to getting peppered with questions. And at the end of the day, I just want to be able to stand by my decision. I am 100% positive that we've made bad choices. I know it. We have probably euthanized a dog that would never have done anything again, and we've definitely kept dogs around that went on and did something. This is an impossible decision. Like, we're predicting the unpredictable. We're predicting the future. It's impossible to do. So for our team, it's really all about getting as much information as possible. And at the end of the day, I just don't want to be like, we should have done something different. If I'm feeling that way, we'll hit pause. It's really important for us to feel good about it, about those decisions. Engaging and empowering is critical if you want to get animals out the door. Super important, especially these dogs that you're starting to discuss, whether it's quality of life, whether it's a behavior issue. We like to say in Cincinnati, life-saving is a community ethic. Everybody wants no kill. I don't know anybody that doesn't want no kill. That sounds great. Why would we want to be killing animals? But you can't just sit there. It's not a spectator sport. We need engagement. You can't just say, I want it, and then go on with your life. Like, you got to help people is really some of our messaging in our community right now. But letting your team participate is really important. And I think what you're hopefully seeing is really this is an open process. We need everybody engaged. So when we have a dog that is starting to have maybe a quality of life issue, starting to spin in the kennel, maybe getting more reactive, maybe more depressed, whatever it might be, we want to make sure that we're providing clear instructions to our team to intervene. This dog is falling apart. Here's what we need. Marcom, you guys need to be doing a post about this dog. Adoptions team, you need to be promoting this dog to be top of mind, looking for that right family. Behavior and training, you better be doing enrichment. This dog better be out of the kennel, 8 hours a day. Everybody is on board with what this dog needs and being very clear about that. Volunteers, we need people to come walk 3 times a day. Whatever that might be, really getting clear communication around what you need to save this dog. What I see a lot of times is this dog's at risk. Okay, I'd love to help, but I don't know what you need. I don't know what that dog needs. Or even if I can help, it might be something very above my pay grade where I don't really know how to, I'm not trained to help that dog, but somebody else is. So getting really clear, and this is something we're starting to really moving in the direction of trying to tell our community as well. Hey, we've got these dogs, we need people to come walk 4 times a day or whatever, and really trying to recruit volunteers that same way. Very specifically, we don't need dog walkers. We need dog walkers that are going to come between 3 to 5 every day or whatever that might be. So getting specific, letting people know how they can help is critical. Utilizing specific staff and volunteers is also a great way to build relationships. You've got people that have a very specific skill set. They're just really good with really shy dogs or really fearful dogs. Go ask them to help. Give them a personal phone call instead of just putting it out to everybody. Hey, volunteers, we need help with this shy dog. Go find that volunteer that you know loves that, is good at it, and ask them to help. Say, hey, if you get a chance, people, I mean, it's nice for them to know that they were being recognized and being called out, and chances are they're more likely to help as well when you go talk to them personally. So get to know what the skills are of your team. And it may even be, again, somebody on your marketing team can let a dog sit under the desk for the day, and they're really good at it. So keep your eyes open. It could be people that surprise you. And just make sure you're getting outside the box with thinking. Encourage anything. There's nothing off the table. If somebody thinks they have an idea, I'll listen. We want to hear it. We want a culture where people feel empowered to make suggestions and make a difference. And finally, just remember the human side. Almost everybody here raised their hand about the murderer or the numbers comment. It is so easy to just come into these conversations. When you put out an announcement, maybe you're making announcements that we're making euthanasia and you got your guard up, you're just ready for who's going to come fight you about it. It's really easy to be that way, and I've been that way, and I have to remind myself weekly to not be that way. But I think it's if you just take a step back, the murderer comment person and the numbers comment person, they both care, and that's what I try to remember at the end of the day. It's usually not personal, usually. They care about these animals, and they're not very good at communicating how they feel. I want to try to create, if I can, some level of empathy. Sometimes that's hard for those of us in the animal field, but we got to be good people. And so being able to just try to put that in perspective, it's not easy. I mean, those comments were upsetting, and they were frustrating, and I didn't feel they were fair. And I've had days where people have made me cry, and I'm definitely not dismissing that, but if I let that just kind of sit with me, I'm gonna struggle. So I've got to just somehow turn it. It's like that person that cuts you off in traffic, and you're like, somebody probably died, and they're on, like, you can change your mindset, you can change your perspective. It's hard to do, but I recommend it if you can, to just give those people some grace, let them do their crazy, and they're gonna take it out on you. That's the job. That's what we're in right now, unfortunately. Having a sense of humor is important. In fact, the group that we meet with and the group when we do have euthanasias, that sense of humor is important. And it can be kind of dark sometimes, but just being completely honest, like, you can't just be sobbing your way through all of these situations. You'll never make it, and we need you. So you gotta find ways to find some levity and get through that process in a way that you make it out on the other side, and you also help others make it out on the other side. And again, making sure you keep in perspective. Again, why are we all here? Those people care, you care, we all care. That's why we're here. And also, and being able to weather that storm, and I know probably people in here have had different situations that have some kind of media blitz or something, or you've been attacked online. I think probably most people, if you're in leadership at minimum, you've probably been there. It does end, mostly. It does decline. People move on to the next thing, create a distraction over here. I don't know, but they do move on to that next thing. Do your best if you can to just weather that storm, and it is. I am not taking away how difficult that is. But if you're dealing with making these decisions and that weight that comes with that, plus the onslaught of people, that can be just too much, and it can be overbearing. Have a plan for that. And again, I think that team around you matters. So if you're doing it by yourself, don't. Also, allow the grieving process. It's okay for the team to cry. I don't. There was points, I think, where I would look at people crying and I would almost feel offended. Like, are you mad at me? Did I make the bad? They're grieving that animal, and that's okay. Let them do that. Some people will cry, some people will laugh, let everybody do their thing. I think as long as it's respectful, that's something that's really important. And it's okay for people to be upset. How they channel that matters, especially if they're within your organization. But allowing that grieving process is okay. And if somebody is really struggling, reach out and try to help. I've actually had conversations that I'm like, I don't know if this is the right field for you. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but you can't, if you're just constantly gonna be in this state, you're not gonna last very long. You gotta find ways to cope with it and find ways to address it. So it's tough. It is really, really tough. And also make sure that you're being thoughtful and open. Just, again, being somebody that people can come to if they want to ask questions. With our team that makes decisions, we're all open, we're all kind of aware that if a volunteer stops me in the hallway and says, "Why did you make that decision?" I'm gonna stop and have that conversation. I might be on my way somewhere, I might be doing something. I'm gonna stop and have that conversation because it's important to, again, building that trust, building that community around what we do. And finally, taking care of yourself is critical. In fact, I've already said a few times, make decisions as a team. You're going to leave and make sure you know that part. But making sure that you're setting boundaries. One thing that I'm going to skip to the last one here just because of kind of where my head is right now. But with take breaks if you need them. I've been sitting in these meetings for 6 years straight, every week for 6 years. I told you I attend almost every single euthanasia. The only time I don't is pretty much when I can't get there. I'm off-site, or it takes a toll. And last year I was having a really, really hard time. I was actually starting to see like a nice dog on a walk, and I'm like, it's gonna get bit, it's gonna get attacked, because that's all I'm hearing in these meetings. And I'm starting to have these like flashes of this nice lady with walking her dog. And I'm like, I'm starting to lose it a little. Like I'm recognizing that I need to step away. I need to take a break. I'm not gonna make good decisions if I think every dog's gonna attack somebody. I'm not gonna be my best self. And so being able to say, hey team, I gotta back off for a minute. I took about 6 weeks away from those meetings last year, and it was very helpful. Helped me get perspective back. I actually didn't just go into a void either. I actually spent time kind of trying to spend time with dogs. Like we take in like 8,000 animals a year. 93 to 95% of them are fantastic and leaving alive. I am so focused because of my job on the few that have caused some kind of trouble. And there's so much good happening in our organization and so many great animals. So it's really important for me to make sure that I am acknowledging that and focusing on that as well and spending time on that. But anyway, setting boundaries is important. Making sure that you're turning things off at the end of the day. One of the best things I did was I unfriended everyone in Cincinnati that has to do with animal welfare. I'm still friends nationally, but just locally. And I sent out a note to a few of them at the time. I'm like, no offense, no offense. But so I don't get tagged on stuff anymore locally, which really means I don't get tagged ever on things like that. It's been really helpful, to do that. And it allowed me to kind of be able to step away at night in my free time. I also took my email alerts off my phone, because I would get an email, some angry thing at 11 o'clock at night, and I couldn't sleep. So I still can check email on my phone, but I don't get alerted. So a couple little things like that have helped me. It's really important to address issues. If somebody is being rude, disrespectful, you got to face it head on. I can't, in my role, I can't just put my head in the sand and don't want to deal with that confrontation, but they're making everybody else uncomfortable. I've got to say something. Like I said, we've kicked people out of these meetings before. If you're going to act like that, you can't be there. So that part is really important, and being able to address even the rumors out there, being able to, as the best I can, get in front of those and let people know that's not okay. Again, focusing on successes are important. There's so much good happening in your shelter. If there is any animal leaving alive, that is a positive. And it's really important for you and your team to acknowledge that and really see that as much as you're seeing the other stuff. As if you're just, like I have in the past, I've just been sort of inundated with the 5%. Spend time with that 95%. Go hang out at the adoption desk. Go watch an owner pick up their dog that went missing. Go make sure you're spending time on that stuff. I think as we move up, we end up in the office a lot more, and we're not getting to see those great things. So make sure you got to be intentional about it. And one piece of advice that was really good for me was make time for what energizes you. And that has to do with going back to, why did you get in this to begin with? I think most of us didn't get into it to sit in an office and fundraise or whatever you're doing out there. If you're in some kind of leadership role, that's probably not what you got here for. There was something you enjoyed, something got you into this industry. Make sure you make time for that. And that's a conversation I have with the managers that report to me. Make time for what energizes you. We have one of our dog managers. He loves doing play groups, and he loves being hands-on with the dogs. And as he moved up, he got further and further away from the play groups, and he got more and more grumpy. So being able to say, hey, what do you like? What do you need to do? So now, to make sure I'm like, make sure, it's up to you. You got to do it. I can't get you there, but you have permission to go run play groups a couple times a week. Make sure you have time for that. So that can help offset some things as well. All right. So those are my tips for you when it comes to just leading your team through things and leading your community and leading your organization. Here's our process in Cincinnati. Before I talk about that, I want to just quickly address the recent challenges we've had. And this is that tweak to my presentation that I've done before. It is really, really hard right now. If last year's Best Friends Conference was in August in Houston, whether or not you were there, if you can kind of think back to that time, raise your hand if you were in a more difficult position right now than you were last August when it comes to animals in your care, maybe population, maybe tough decisions. A lot of us are going through that. We're seeing that national trend of live outcomes are dropping, and it's become that on-site population is becoming an issue, and that's something we're dealing with in Cincinnati. We have, as I mentioned, we are students of the industry, and we have been doing all the best practice, and we're having moments where like it's not working. We're really getting jammed up. We're having too many dogs for the first time ever, and we're having to make decisions we weren't making before. We might have given a dog 6 months, and we can only give it 3 months now to find that home. And so we're having some really tough conversations and some really difficult discussions around that type of stuff. And if you are dealing with that, I want you to know that a lot of people are too. You're not doing anything wrong. The shelters are struggling a little bit right now. If you're a rescue group, I know you're probably backlogged as well. Got no fosters left. So it is important, I think, to just acknowledge that we're in a tough spot right now as an industry. But I think just like all these ideas of the last 10 years, 15 years of open adoptions and community support and intake divert, all these things, play groups, all this stuff that people have been doing the last while, those were all new innovative ideas. I think we're in a phase where we gotta get the next wave. What's the next thing that's gonna help? What's the next thing that we gotta do? So it's challenging right now, but here's what we do. So I mentioned values and philosophies. The number one thing for us in Cincinnati is every dog will get a chance, and every dog will be treated as an individual. They will get a chance, and they're gonna be treated as an individual. We make sure that every dog, when they come in, we're not gonna be, oh, you had one little thing, euthanize, moving on. Every dog goes through the same process. The speed of the process can change, but they're going through the same assessment process. They're going through the same opportunity. That equal opportunity is really important. We have to do what's best for the population. We have a large group. It's easy to get really focused in on like one dog or two dogs. We gotta do what's best for everybody. We also have to make sure that we are not knowingly placing unsafe dogs. So if we're seeing behaviors that we are like, I wouldn't adopt that dog. We're not gonna have somebody else do that either. Those are the decisions that we're making as the county shelter, as the front line. We also have to make sure that we're aware of our fluctuating and finite resources. They have to be used responsibly, whether that's money, whether that's staff time, whether that's office space, whether it's special kenneling. Those are all resources that need to be used very carefully. So we have, in an effort to better kind of divide and conquer and make sure that every dog gets what they need, with full transparency, we are still working through this, but it is working, it's moving us in the right direction. We've prioritized every dog. We used to be very focused on the few that had the most risk at a euthanasia. The dog might have had multiple bites, had this and that, and we were hyper-focused. They got all the resources, and what we realized was all of our really good, I'll use good and bad like in quotations, but all of our good dogs were over here starting to fall apart because they weren't getting anything. And then they start clogging up our system, and then they become these dogs that are struggling. So what we've said is we've got to get the dogs with no issues, they got to go because they're going to save the lives of the rest. If they can open up kennel space, if they can decrease length of stay, if they can do all these things, they're going to leave, and that's going to allow us to turn our focus to the other guys and give them more space. So we've kind of flipped our focus to focus in on those guys. The dogs with deterioration are kind of our second priority. They're great dogs who are just falling apart. That's like that bothers me. That we've got dogs that are really good and they just don't do well in the shelter system. So this is sort of the order that we're prioritizing, and each of those groups has staff assigned to it. Our playgroup coordinator, our enrichment coordinator, they're focused on the deterioration dogs. Our outcome team focused on the no issues dogs. Our really strong behavior staff focused on the dogs that need more help. So everybody's kind of dividing and conquering and working through these dogs. I mentioned our team meetings. We actually have two. We have a life-saving meeting, that's the one I'm in. That is, we meet once a week, we discuss an outcome. Probably by this point, a lot of you are probably doing that. At this meeting I attend, our medical director attends, this is my team. We have a veterinarian that comes when she can, and our dog program manager and our outcomes manager. That's the team that we've landed on right now. We've had different people, different positions in there, but that's our group, and I think it's a really strong, it's a good balance of different staff with different perspectives. Our dog program manager has pretty high tolerance for behaviors. Our outcomes manager doesn't want anything that's over 20 pounds. So it's a nice balance of just some perspective. If the outcomes manager she's our average adopter, I think. So she provides some good perspective. The intervention meeting is really important. That is actually what I'll call, just for lack of better terms, kind of our lower level staff, our next level down. We've really empowered them to meet as well. So I'm not in that meeting, our managers aren't in that meeting, but that group is there, and they're empowered to make decisions, not about euthanasia, but just make decisions about what to do with dogs. So we have a lower level group that's meeting, and then when they can't figure it out, it gets kicked up to our higher level meeting. This slide has way too many words on it, but just for you to see, these are just some of the intervention strategies that we might use. And I think a part of that is important to just know there's a lot of options. And when I say every dog needs to be treated equally, that doesn't mean they all get this. We don't just run through it. There's something called doggy paddles right there in the middle. That's a water park that allows us to take, like a dog water park, that allows us to take dogs there for free from the shelter. It's really cool, but a dog that's resource guarding, that's not on that dog's plan. So equal opportunity, but he didn't need to go to doggy paddles. So this is just kind of a list of what we look for. Shelter buddy at the very bottom is pretty cool. Anyone in the organization is able to participate. They just volunteer, hey, I want to be a shelter buddy, and they get matched with a dog that just needs some help. And part of their paid staff time, part of their paid day, is to go spend 15 or 20 minutes with that dog working on something. So it's a really cool way just to get, again, back to what energizes you. It allows your staff at all levels, in all departments, to participate and get hands on those dogs, and it benefits the dogs too. This is possibly our most important slide. How the considerations and what we discuss when it comes to life-saving euthanasia decisions. Our top three are actually from Austin Pets Alive. We got those as a recommendation from some of the staff there, and then we kind of built out the rest. But when we're talking about whether or not we should continue or we should stop, we go through this list. Offensive behavior toward humans, unpredictable behavior toward humans, and uninterruptible behavior toward humans is not good. And again, all those have different levels. We use the Ian Dunbar scale to assess bites. But when we're talking about that stuff, that's the kind of stuff that we're having less tolerance for now than maybe and not to say we're just pudding. I want to make sure very clear. We weren't tolerant of it before, but depending on the level of bite, these are decisions that we're having to make a lot more quickly than maybe saying, well, let's work with this dog for a bit and see what we can do. Threshold matters, 0 to 100, how quickly do they get there? Do they get to that offensive behavior? The number of bites, the severity, potential for damage. I know, small dogs should be held to the same standard. But it's not like, oh, this dog's big, we need to euthanize, of course. But it is a factor. What is that potential for damage when we're looking at the rest of these things as well? Significant concerning behavior toward other animals is one that we've recently kind of added more weight to as well in our community. And when we're talking about the dogs that we want out there living next door to us, is understanding their behavior that way, quality of life, and then we have something called uneasy factor, and that's just the dogs that give you the creeps. They haven't done anything, but the hair on your neck is standing up. So that's really what we try to run through when we're talking about what decisions we're going to be making. Those all really boil down to these four areas that we've tried to simplify. Those 10, we've really brought them into 4. Instead, are we offensive with humans, offensive with animals? Is there a quality of life issue? And do you need special housing? That's another one we've added more recently. We have certain kennels that are better than others. And if you need to live in a better kennel, you've now kicked out somebody else who now isn't living in that better kennel. So if they're holding up the prime real estate and have a lot of these other issues, we may need to start making some decisions. So when we do want to continue trying, we do want to continue with the life-saving, we're going to, I like to just ask these questions. Are we moving upward? Are we trending upward? Are we doing better? Is the dog making improvements? If they are, we'll keep going. The plan has to be realistic. If we've got a husky that needs to go on 3-4 mile runs a day, probably not realistic that we can do that. So we could say that all day, that's what the dog needs, but if we can't do it, we've got to decide whether or not we can actually provide what they need. We also have to have a timeline. We used to let our plans go on forever. We'll reveal, like, what, 4 months has passed and we're still doing the same thing and not seeing results? So we've really had to dial that in. And we also have to make sure it's safe to do so. If I'm putting my staff at risk on a daily basis just to pull a dog from a kennel, that's, again, a discussion we need to be having about whether or not we continue. Again, I mentioned the resources that we have. Everything you can offer a dog, space, food, staffing, kenneling, enrichment, whatever it is a resource. And every resource you give away is one that another dog doesn't get. And we often have discussions about, we've got one good kennel left. Who gets it? I got 8 dogs here who really could use it. What do we do with the other 7? Can they survive? Can they make it? Can we do something else for them? So, because we used to just be like, everybody gets it, but there's only one, and we're not doing the math. So it's really important for us to have plans that can actually be applied. And if they can't, what are we going to do next? After life-saving meetings, and I'm probably running out of time here, so I'll kind of buzz through a little bit, but after life-saving meetings, that transparency, we send out the announcement to everybody. Our staff get it, our volunteers get it, and then I know that it gets forwarded to everybody else in the community about the date, the time, the dogs, and why we're making that decision. We also, if euthanasia is decided, we try to provide an opportunity for people to say goodbye, and that's preferred. But we actually have open attendance at our euthanasias. So if somebody wants to attend, they are welcome to do that. What we just ask, because it can get a little crowded if we're not monitoring it, is that people have a really strong relationship with that animal. Maybe they fostered it, maybe it was their shelter buddy, and that they are respectful at that meeting, or at that euthanasia. So we allow, anybody can attend, they just have to ask their manager, make sure they're allowed, and they can be there. And I think sometimes that can be a little scary, like what is going on, but we want to make sure that we're providing that. So the whole process that we have is very special with the euthanasia. We do this for every single one, and with the paw prints and with the open attendance. And it's really important to us to just make sure that process gets kind of closed out for anybody who is there. And I'm happy to discuss a little bit more about what that looks like, but it's been really well received. So my time is up. I meant to leave some time for some questions, but I've got whoops, sorry. I'll put that up there for everybody. And if you have any questions or anything, please let me know or shoot me an email after. But I'm happy to discuss about how we might help your organization as well. So thank you, everybody.